My friends, let's start with something foundational. Look at nature's greatest shifts. None of them come with an announcement, a declaration, an explanation. Take the turn from night into day. Does the sun issue a warning before it rises? Does darkness give notice before it withdraws? Never, friends. The shift happens in total silence, with perfect ease. I recall a woman who visited me in Detroit. She'd been wrestling with a work situation that had long stopped serving her. For months, she'd been telling everyone her plans to leave, explaining her frustrations to anyone who'd listen, repeatedly announcing her upcoming exit. And yet she stayed put, held in place by invisible ties to the exact situation she wanted free of. Then she encountered this idea of leaving in silence, and everything shifted. Let me offer you what I call the law of the quiet exodus. It states that any real transformation in your life follows the same pattern as nature's greatest force: silence. Think of a leaf letting go of its branch. Does it warn the other leaves first? Does it justify its choice to fall? Does it wait for their blessing? No, it simply loosens its grip when the moment arrives, and in that quiet release, it finds its true path down. Here's the thing: when you announce your plans to leave, when you explain your reasoning, when you seek approval for your departure, you're doing something quietly destructive. You're bleeding off the power your decision needs. Every explanation, every announcement, every self-justification acts like a tiny puncture in a pressurized tank. The energy meant to drive your transformation instead escapes through idle words. Let me walk you through what I call the 3 silences of leaving. The first is the silence of decision, choosing without announcing it. The second is the silence of preparation, getting ready without narrating it. The third is the silence of action, actually going without fanfare. I remember a man in New York who understood this perfectly. He'd been stuck in a business partnership that was draining him. For years he'd threatened to walk away, voiced his complaints, laid out his position to anyone within earshot. Nothing budged. Then this understanding reached him, and something clicked. He saw that his constant declarations weren't proof of strength, they were confessions of weakness. Every time he announced his intent to leave, he was really just reaffirming that he couldn't. Once he grasped this, he did something bold. He went completely quiet about his plans. Let me share what I call the principle of quiet power. Real power moves without noise, the same way nature's core forces operate soundlessly. Gravity doesn't announce its pull. Electricity doesn't explain its current. The earth doesn't proclaim its spin. Now here's what happened to that man once he adopted the practice of quiet departure. Without telling a soul, without one word of explanation, he began quietly preparing his exit. No discussions about his plans, no fishing for approval, no broadcasting his intentions. This leads us to what I call the law of undiluted power. Every time you speak about your plans to leave, you leak the very energy required to make it happen. It's like trying to pressurize a tank riddled with holes. The act of announcing itself opens the leaks through which your creative power drains away. Recall the story of Mary, who, upon hearing the most extraordinary news of her life, that she would carry the Christ child, kept these things and held them quietly in her heart. She didn't rush to tell the world. She didn't look to friends for validation. She carried the full weight of her transformation in complete silence. Let me introduce what I call the 5 chambers of quiet departure. The first is the chamber of decision, where your choice is made in total privacy. The second is the chamber of preparation, where you quietly get ready for the shift. The third is the chamber of release, where you loosen emotional ties without narrating it. The fourth is the chamber of movement, where you act without announcement. The fifth is the chamber of arrival, where the silence continues even after you've gone. I recall a woman in Los Angeles who mastered these chambers beautifully. She'd outgrown a social circle that no longer matched where she was heading spiritually. For months, she'd talked about leaving, explained her reasons, defended her decision. But every explanation only tightened the very bonds she was trying to loosen. Then she absorbed these principles, and something shifted. She entered the first chamber, deciding in complete privacy. No announcements, no explanations, no seeking approval. In the second chamber, she quietly began shaping her inner state for the shift, all while maintaining full silence. Here's what matters about the power of an undeclared intention. Announcing your plan to leave actually manufactures resistance to it. Every declaration gets met by an equal opposite pushback. Other people's opinions, their efforts to talk you out of it, the doubt they project onto your choice. Think of a rocket leaving Earth's atmosphere. The most critical stretch of its journey happens in silence, high above the clouds. If it broadcast its trajectory at every step, if it sought approval for its course, it would never break free of gravity's grip. This brings us to what I call the silent point of power. The moment you recognize that your ability to reshape your life doesn't come from declaring it, but from your silence. Not from explaining, but from quietly and steadily assuming the new state. Let me name the 3 illusions of announced departure. The first illusion, announcing your intent, makes it more real. It doesn't. It makes it less real by scattering your power. The second illusion, explaining your reasons, helps others understand. It doesn't. It just opens the door to doubt and resistance. The third illusion, declaring your plans, keeps you accountable. It doesn't. It actually weakens your resolve by handing it over to other people's opinions. Now let me share what I call the sacred mathematics of silence. Every profound shift in nature follows a precise formula rooted in stillness. The less you speak of your departure, the more power builds toward its fulfillment. It's an inverse relationship. Few grasp it, but everyone eventually must. I remember a student from San Francisco. He was trying to leave a career that no longer matched his purpose. For years he'd announced his plans, declared his intentions, explained his reasoning, and with every declaration, he sank further into the very career he wanted to leave. Let me introduce the 7 seals of quiet departure. The first seal, mental silence, keeping the decision within your own mind. The second, emotional silence, staying calm and detached without outward display. The third, verbal silence, declining to discuss your plans with anyone. The fourth, social silence, quietly stepping back from what ties you to the old state. The fifth, digital silence, never announcing your plans online. The sixth, spiritual silence, holding pure faith without needing validation. The seventh, manifest silence, letting your actions be the only statement. Consider what I call the law of silent accumulation. Every moment you keep silent about leaving, power gathers within your consciousness, like pressurizing a sealed vessel. The tighter the seal, the greater the buildup. But one small leak, one careless announcement, and the pressure starts leaking away. Let me tell you about a businessman in Chicago who mastered this. He'd built a thriving company, but knew it was time for his next chapter. Rather than announce his plans, or ask for advice or validation, he went entirely silent about his intentions. This brings us to the principle of quiet magnetism. When you hold complete silence about your departure, you create what I call a vacuum of manifestation. Nature abhors a vacuum, and into that silence flows everything needed for your transition. Think of a caterpillar entering its cocoon. Does it tell the world it's about to become a butterfly? Does it wait for anyone's blessing? No. It enters the silence of its chrysalis, and within that stillness, transformation happens. Here's what to understand about the three powers of quiet departure. The first is the power of containment, keeping your energy focused, never scattered. The second is the power of accumulation, building momentum purely through silence. The third is the power of manifestation, letting your transformation unfold without resistance. Let me describe what I call the silent bridge, the invisible pathway linking where you are now to where you're headed. Every word spoken about crossing it weakens the structure. Every announcement sends vibrations that could bring the whole passage down. Now consider what I call the law of silent momentum. Just as a river runs deepest where it's quietest, your manifesting power grows exponentially the more perfectly you hold your silence. Once you understand this law, you'll never again feel the urge to announce your changes. I remember a woman in Boston who came to me in tears. She'd been trying to leave a relationship that had stopped supporting her growth. For months she'd been announcing her plans, threatening to leave, explaining her reasons. And with every declaration, she found herself more tangled in the very relationship she was trying to exit. Let me introduce the four chambers of quiet power. The first, the chamber of recognition, where you acknowledge that your power lives in silence. The second, the chamber of resolve, where silence makes your decision unshakable. The third, the chamber of action, where your movements grow deliberate and soundless. The fourth, the chamber of completion, where transformation arrives without a single announcement. Consider what I call the principle of quiet authority. Genuine authority never has to announce itself. Does the sun proclaim its brightness? Does gravity declare its hold on the planets? No. They simply operate with silent, absolute authority. Think of the great oak when it's ready to release a leaf. Does it call a meeting with the other leaves? Explain itself to the forest? No. It simply releases when the time is right, in perfect quiet. Let me name the 5 illusions of announced departure. First illusion. Announcing my exit makes it more real. Truth. Announcements actually water down the reality of your intention. Second illusion. I have to explain so others understand. Truth. Their understanding isn't required for your transformation. Third illusion. Declaring my plans keeps me accountable. Truth. Outside accountability actually weakens your inner resolve. Fourth illusion. I owe people an explanation. Truth. Your only real obligation is to your own growth. Fifth illusion. Talking about it helps me process the change. Truth. Silent processing runs far deeper than talking it out. I once knew a man in Philadelphia who embodied this understanding fully. He'd spent 20 years in a business partnership. When he sensed it was time to move on, he didn't announce it. He didn't ask anyone's opinion. He didn't explain himself. Instead, he entered what I call the sacred silence of transition. This brings us to the law of silent preparation. Just as nature readies its greatest transformations quietly, the butterfly inside its cocoon, the seed beneath the soil, the child in the womb, your own greatest shifts must also be prepared in stillness. Now let me share what I call the principle of quiet elevation. Just as an eagle rises to great heights without a sound, your rise into new states of being must happen in complete silence. This is law, not suggestion. Consider the three levels of silent mastery. The first is physical silence. Your body moves without announcing itself. The second is mental silence. Your mind plans without declaring its plans aloud. The third is spiritual silence. Your soul transforms without proclamation. I remember a teacher who came to me in Seattle. She'd spent 5 years announcing her plan to leave her profession. 5 years of declarations, 5 years of explanations, 5 years of announcements. And for 5 years she remained exactly where she was, bound by the very words she believed would set her free. Let me walk you through the silent path of power, made of 7 stages, each deeper than the last. Stage 1. Recognition. Understanding that true power moves in silence. Stage 2. Decision. Choosing without announcement. Stage 3. Preparation. Getting ready without declaring it. Stage 4. Release. Letting go of ties without explaining yourself. Stage 5. Movement. Taking action without proclamation. Stage 6. Transition. Transforming without justification. Stage 7. Arrival. Completing the journey without celebration. This brings us to what I call the law of silent magnetism. When you hold perfect silence about leaving, you generate a magnetic field of manifestation, one that draws to you every circumstance required for your transition. But this field can only function in silence. Think of the moon's pull on the tides. Does the moon announce its gravitational reach? Explain its force? No. It simply exerts its power in total silence, and the vast oceans respond. Let me name the 4 pillars of quiet power. First, silent knowing, the deep understanding that power lives in silence. Second, silent movement, the ability to act without announcement. Third, silent transformation, the capacity to change without declaring it. Fourth, silent completion, the power to arrive without explanation. I knew a businessman in New York who lived out these pillars fully. He'd built a company worth millions, and when he knew it was time to move on, he told none of his colleagues. He explained nothing to his partners. He declared nothing to his employees. Instead, he entered what I call the sacred chamber of silent execution. Consider a doctor in Miami who came to grasp these ideas. She'd stayed in a medical practice that no longer matched her growth. For years she'd told everyone about her plans, sought advice, explained her position, and for years she stayed stuck, bound by the very words she believed would set her free. Let me offer the 9 secrets of quiet power. First, power builds in silence. Second, movement is strongest when unannounced. Third, transformation needs no explanation. Fourth, real authority requires no declaration. Fifth, genuine change happens quietly. Sixth, power moves without sound. Seventh, silence builds momentum. Eighth, unspoken intentions manifest the fastest. Ninth, the less you say, the more you achieve. This brings us to the law of silent momentum. Just as a snowball rolling downhill grows in size and speed silently, your power to manifest expands exponentially the more perfectly you hold your silence. Consider what I call the three chambers of silent execution. First, the chamber of decision, where you choose in total privacy, letting no word slip about your intentions. Here you hold your choice sacred, understanding that every word spoken thins its power. Second, the chamber of preparation, where you get ready in complete quiet, gathering resources, deepening your resolve, all without a single announcement. Third, the chamber of action, where you move with the silence of a shadow, carrying out your plans with the quiet precision of natural law. Let me share the 5 commands of quiet departure. First, do not announce your intentions. Second, do not seek approval for your choice. Third, do not explain your reasons. Fourth, do not justify your actions. Fifth, move in complete silence. Now, dear friends, let me offer what I call the ultimate law of silent achievement. Grasp this, and you'll never again doubt the power of silence in transformation. Every great achievement throughout history has followed this pattern of quiet execution. Recall the scripture, "Be still, and know that I am God." This stillness, this sacred silence, isn't only about physical quiet. It's about holding perfect stillness in your mind, your emotions, and your actions as you move from one state into another. Let me leave you with the final mysteries of silent power. The mystery of silent dignity. Leaving without announcement preserves a dignity that no explanation can match. Explanations often turn into apologies, and apologies dilute your power. The mystery of silent strength. True strength never announces itself. The lion doesn't roar to prove its power. It moves quietly until action is required. The mystery of silent success. The greatest triumphs unfold like dawn, gradual, quiet, but absolutely certain. I want to leave you with what I call the 7 sacred truths of quiet departure. First, your silence is your power. Second, your departure needs no announcement. Third, your transformation needs no explanation. Fourth, your movement needs no declaration. Fifth, your growth needs no validation. Sixth, your evolution needs no justification. Seventh, your success needs no proclamation. Hold on to this eternal truth. The power to reshape your life doesn't live in your declarations. It lives in your silence. Not in your announcements, but in your quiet assumption of the new state. Not in your explanations, but in your silent execution. As we close tonight, picture yourself as the vast ocean, powerful, deep, simply because it is. The ocean never explains its motion. It never announces its tides. It never declares its depths. It simply moves in perfect harmony with divine law. Go now, not in doubt, not in fear, but in the certain knowledge that as you hold your silence, as you move without announcement, your transformation must come to pass. It is law. Carry these final words with you. Your silence is your strength. Your quiet departure is your power. Your unannounced transition is your path to freedom. Keep this silence, keep this sacred discretion, and watch your world reshape itself to match your quiet assumption. In the end, it is not the noise of announcement, but the silence of execution through which all things are created. Not the clamor of explanation, but the quiet of determined action that brings transformation. Go now in silence, in confidence, in the sure knowledge that what you desire is already yours. For in consciousness, all things become possible to those who believe, and who hold that belief in silence. Good night, and blessings to you all. This is Neville Lectures. I'll see you again in the next video.